presidential candidate of the governing All Progressive Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has arrived in Jos, the Plateau state capital, ahead of the official flag-off of his campaign slated for Tuesday, November 15. Tinubu, who arrived in Jos in company of Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje, National Chairman of the APC Abdullahi Adamu, and members of the Presidential Campaign Council, later inaugurated his campaign office in the state. He also assured APC supporters of victory at the polls. Stakeholders share their views on the importance and significance of the choice of Plateau State to flag off the campaigns.
Over the years, in fact, precisely in the early 80s and early 90s, a lot of political parties have chosen Jos or Plateau State precisely for their flagged off. And I think it has paid off, particularly the one of 1993. The PDP also had their own primaries here. That was between Obasanjo, Tinubu, and the rest, Atiku, and the rest of them. The choice of Plateau State this year, particularly tomorrow for the flag off of the All Progressive Congress, is very historic.
Plateau has always hosted presidential candidates that have emerged victorious. You recall that MKO Abiola was hosted in Plateau. He came out victorious. Under Solomon La also, he was hosted, and Obasanjo came out victorious. So it's also instructive that this event is taking place, and the fact that Governor Simon Lalong is the DG is not by accident, and that is why he is following through the winning streak. And for us in APC, we are happy because we have the best candidate on the ballot.
All right, Dr. Bati, I must have to say, you look dapper, the suit, the tie, goodness me, something else?
No, you're looking good yourself.
Dr. Bati, you look dapper. So, the big flag off by Tinubu himself, he started today.
All these political parties, either it's the APC or the Labour Party or the People's Democratic Party or any other political party, including the African Action Congress, they've been going around the country. So this morning, we have just about a little over 100 days to the election. So it is to be expected that the political parties will move from one location to the other. So the presidential candidate of the APC is in Plateau State for the flag off, where the Plateau State is a very strategic location in the Middle Belt. And the APC needs votes from, like other political parties, from every part of the country, because you need to score 25% of the votes in 2/3 of the states. That will be 24 out of 36. This is the season for a lot of hard work for the presidential candidates, for the political parties. It's also the season for propaganda. We may have issues with the propaganda, with social media banditry going ahead of issues, which is really unfortunate. But clearly, this presidential candidates, is part of their strategy, normal strategy. You don't need any basic intelligence to understand that for you to meet the constitutional provision of, 25% in 2/3 of the states, you need to go everywhere. Now, in Plateau State, Simon Lalong, that's the governor, right?
Yes.
He's the he's the man in charge of the campaign of the party. So it's also strategic for the candidate of the party to go straight to Plateau State, Jos, for the flag off of the campaigns in that particular zone. In the same manner in which the candidate of the People's Democratic Party had a special flag off in Uyo, okay, which is a recognition of the fact, and of course, subliminally, the APC may be playing the game, the religious game again here, to show that, look, the chairman of our campaign is a Christian, and we've gone to Plateau also. But basically, the simple common sense strategy is that you need 25% in 2/3 of the states. And these candidates have to campaign everywhere. They have to talk to the people. We just hope that these campaigns, whether it's the APC or the PDP or the LP, Labour Party, or the New Nigeria People's Party, or the African Action Congress, or the African Democratic Party, that their campaigns, or maybe perhaps even the APUGA, as they call it, that these campaigns are organic, and that the crowds that we see, always described euphemistically here in Nigeria as the mammoth crowd, that these crowds are organic. That the crowds that they put together at these campaigns will translate perhaps into votes on election day. Because the fear is that it's one thing to hold rallies, it's one thing to flag off campaigns and show great color and entertainment on television. It's another thing to have very strong voter turnout, to translate all that enthusiasm into concrete votes.
Two things. One thing is certain. Many things are certain. So let me start. The beginning of the campaign for Bola Ahmed Tinubu, his ambition, like he says, is to be president. He's been in politics for quite a while, date back over 30 years. He's an experienced politician, you give it to him. One thing is certain, he will put on a show in Jos, definitely. He would have the crowd definitely come out to him because he's got his own level of supporters. Also, the incumbent governor of Plateau State, campaign DJ and all of that, they'll put on a show. But what I'm more concerned about is the issues that affect Nigerians and how these issues will be tackled. So in this electoral process, we'll have big campaign rallies, which is good to excite your base, which is good to see your people, but also the issues. And also the call on the supporters to stop attacking people to have various views. You wonder if the peace accord is respected because there have been attacks by supporters of various political parties, even on journalists that are independently doing their work. And there have been threats. And we don't want that for a political dispensation. I keep saying the essence of democracy and electioneering should be a festival of ideas. If political surrogates meet each other, they should argue on things like, I saw your plan on the economy. What's the workability of this? How are you going to bring millions of people out of poverty? People from various political parties should be able to sit down on the table, have a drink together, and make good arguments and shake each other and walk off. Not threatening people by saying, you report something bad about me, we'll probably beat you at some point. That's not the democracy we want in Nigeria. Because you see, it is the issues that can change the lives of people. And that's what we should stick to. And we should lower the temperature. The political temperature we're getting into December is getting heightened now. We already have firecrackers everywhere before it's Christmas. Like I said this morning, it's only Christmas period we have firecrackers. You have what they call, banga in Nigeria parlance or knockouts and things like that. No, let's save all the fireworks for Christmas. But the political season should be a fireworks of ideas. And that's what we call on. Wish him all the best as he starts his campaign today, like I wish other presidential candidates as they start their, full-on campaign with big rallies and big crowds. But most importantly, it must be safe, it must be secure, and people should also advise their followers, keep it clean. Let's argue on the ideas. You can't go wrong on the ideas. But on the sentiments, it definitely will have to be sentiments. Inclusion in all phases of economic development topped discussion at the 28th Nigeria Economic Summit holding in the nation's capital, Abuja. The meeting provides a platform for attendees to articulate the framework within Nigeria's economic priorities are debated. Arise correspondent Oyi Sunday reports.
With the theme 2023 and beyond, priorities for shared prosperity, speaker after speaker buttressed the underlying message, the need for socio-economic inclusion.
I also suggest that we address the problem of unequal access to basic livelihood amenities like food, water, roads that foster micro-activity and enable produce to get to markets, schools that deliver solid basic education without security concerns, and basic health care. Last but certainly not the least, we must start to seriously address in a deliberate way how we turn our vast manpower into competitive human capital by bridging the knowledge deficits and skill gaps that will be required for an accelerated future.
We constantly say we have witnessed 7 consecutive quarters of growth, and it is true. But this growth has not permeated to the citizen. The citizen is still buying food in high prices from the market. So we need to look at how we can reduce the high cost of food prices, and that means we need to look at how we can better handle inflation. Because inflation in Nigeria today, the highest push in inflation is the food component. And the food inflation is driven largely by high cost of transportation, which is largely also driven by high cost of energy. So we must address that energy source by diversifying the type of energy that we use, not just even generally, but for transportation.
As Nigeria proceeds into a transition year, delegates here articulate the country's development imperatives required to achieve economic security, social justice, and political stability.
Because the foreign exchange policy is not something that is understood, it's not scientific, it's multiple exchange rates. Sometimes, because the playing field is not level, let's imagine there are 3 of us in the same business, but I have the right parentage. If I get foreign exchange at 450, and I get impatient and sell my goods at 550, 650, the other 2 people with poorer parents have to buy at the parallel market. My activities can bankrupt them. There are Nigerians losing or going out of business, not because they're inefficient, but because an inefficient but well-connected businessman enters their space and they cannot compete with him. So his actions make them bankrupt.
For the country's vice president, Nigeria's rising inflation at 21.3% is cause for concern.
Inflation, for example, needs to be tackled head-on because it is both, as economists will say, a tax on the poor, and of course it disrupts long-term growth. Inflation, as has been said, and I think 1 or 2 have mentioned it, is in our country today is partly structural, arising from infrastructural deficiencies, etc. But then there's an aspect that is also caused by increased money supply, imported inflation, and depreciation of the naira. In addition, therefore, to the monetary measures that have already been undertaken by the Central Bank of Nigeria, we will need to increase domestic production of food, because food inflation, as you know, is a major component of that basket that shows us exactly where our inflation is headed.
Over the next 2 days, attendees will have an opportunity to implement strategies geared towards achieving Nigeria's development agenda 2050. Onyi Sunday, Arise News.
All right. Dr. Batu.
Okay, I mean, the National Economic Summit Group, they've been on the scene since 1993. They got registered in 1994. They were incorporated in 1996. And since then, they've been there as a private sector-led policy think tank in Nigeria, identifying the issues in terms of the way forward. Over the years, the concern that has been expressed is whether, this National Economic Summit Group meetings, debates, and all of that, including policy proposals, have not ended up merely as talking shops, okay? Now, it was Olaruchime who wrote a book, a play, really, called Holding Talks. That in Nigeria, what we do is just we hold talks. We are very good at organizing conferences, seminars, think tanks, policy debates. Everybody comes there. They say all the right things. But what is the impact in terms of reform, in terms of progress made, in terms of development within the economy? However, this is not to derogate from the importance of a body like the Economic Summit Group, providing a platform for, reason, thought, deliberations, contemplations around the issues that are very germane to the development of the economy. Some of the members of the National Economic Summit Group have shown up in the policy arena. What is the connection? So these are some of the questions that I think can be thrown up. Now they're having the 28th edition of the National Economic Summit Group, and as it has been traditional, characteristically, Asue Ighodalo, who is chairman of the National Economic Summit Group, in my view, struck all the right notes. The major discussion at this summit has been the Nigeria we want. Yes, many of us are concerned about the Nigeria we want. There was also a presentation about the Nigeria we need. So the whole issue, again, as has been the case in previous economic summit organized by the group, has been how do you move Nigeria from this point to the other point? And in Asue Ighodalo's presentation, he identified 8 consensus issues, which he says that if anybody who wants to be president of Nigeria does not address, then of course the person is not ready to lead Nigeria. And what are some of these 8 consensus issues that he was talking about yesterday? If I remember some of them, job creation is there, infrastructural development is there, being responsive to humanitarian crisis is one of the issues. What else is there? Addressing macroeconomic policy challenges is one of the issues. Also, promoting democracy, good governance is part of it. Providing good leadership is part of it. Basically, 8 major points: infrastructure, job creation, rejigging national institutions, which are very important. How do you rebuild institutions so that this country can work? He also talked about social protection and development. What social protection issues can you put in there? All of this focusing, as he pointed out, on human capital development. And on that, it's not wrong. It's absolutely correct. But it's not enough for us to just have these policy think tanks, every time we come, we hold this summit. What is the connection in terms of policy? Some people will credit the National Economic Summit Group with some of the developments within the economy over the years, particularly needs, particularly seeds, and some of the developments within the economy in which members of this Economic Summit Group have had to play policy roles one way or the other. So it's not as if I'm dismissing that connection between think tanks and the policy process. But what is the outcome? That's the question. So this year's National Economic Summit Group is coming at a good time ahead of the elections. And what is even further instructive is that the National Economic Summit Group, in collaboration with the National Election Debate Group, is providing a platform for candidates of the various political parties to come to this summit and present their agenda and interact with the private sector. And I hope that all the political candidates, presidential candidates, will take advantage of this. Because let's face it, the private sector is an important part of the political process. Maybe someday, there will be time to do an essay on how the private sector influences political outcomes in Nigeria. These are persons who depend on the Nigerian state for patronage. The private sector wants to determine who becomes governor, who becomes even local government chairman. They give them money. So it's not enough to just collect money from the private sector. You also, as presidential candidates, as politicians, need to go there and engage them. In any case, don't be deceived. They will give money to every presidential candidate anyway. They will hedge their bets because they are that non-formal sector, if I may use that phrase, who try to control the Nigerian state. These are major stakeholders, and they are not joking. And in 2023, they will try. They will try their luck.
I mean, a lot of good points raised about NESG, but one thing is certain. This conversation needs to translate, like you said. And that's why I am not happy that the NESG has postponed its debates. Because the candidates, I don't know what's happening. They've not given a reason why they postponed the debates, but whatever it is, candidates must come and debate. It's not supposed to be necessarily on their terms. It should be on the terms of various organizations like the NESG and the likes, giving a clear platform for them to debate under debate conditions. The highlight of this summit that I was looking forward to was that debate, and I was sad when it was postponed. Because all the NESG is talking about is what Mario Cuomo calls the pros of governance. Popular New York governor, Mario Cuomo, says we campaign in poetry and govern in prose. I will turn $1 to $1. I'll build all the roads in Nigeria. I'll do this, I'll do that. I'll solve insecurity in 6 months. That's the poetry of campaign. Prose of campaign, we have prose of governance, we have decimated Boko Haram, but there are still attacks here and there. It is always just the remnants that are attacking people, but there are still attacks everywhere. We'll shun corruption, but there's a case of 109 billion or 150 billion of the Accountant General. So there's a difference between the prose of governance and debate. It's when you get in there, you see that, oh, the parameters you talked about when you were campaigning was not the same. And that's why we should have debates to be able to give you the reality of the parameters. Kudos to Arise. This is a series of town halls for candidates to espouse these ideas. Kudos to other platforms too that have done that. But most importantly, it's about having these ideas. And please, I would like to call on candidates that have not released their manifesto. Anyway, it's just, also a very faulty move. And we have to depend on presidential candidates to release their manifesto when we have political parties that are even supposed to release their manifesto, because if we had an ideological system that works, it is parties that should release manifesto. I've never heard anywhere, maybe in the UK, parliamentary democracy, for instance. Anyway, we don't run parliamentary democracy. That it is, it's the party that released the manifesto. It's not the candidates. You work in tandem with the party. But some will say, okay, we have a presidential system here. So the candidates will release their manifesto of what they will do. But whatever it is, candidates that have not released their manifesto spread across the 18 political parties, please, it is incumbent on you to release your manifesto so we can interrogate the process. All we are concerned about is the prose of government, which is a very important and delicate work rather than the poetry. Poetry is free, it's easy, it's sweet, but hard work, knock on wood, is not that easy to do. And we must interrogate the process. And when you fail in the hard work, you should be objective and also, okay, I failed in this. And when people need to, see reasons with you, people see reasons with you. All we want is a better country, a robust country. And Nigeria is the best kept secret in the world. The federal government has filed a 3-count charge against 26-man crew of the rogue vessel MT Heroic Idun at the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt, Rivers State. The arraignment comes just a few days after the authorities in Equatorial Guinea handed over the crew and vessel to the Nigerian Navy at the Luba anchorage of Bioko Island in Malabo.
Wednesday, the 9th of November, Nigeria's Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Zubairu Gambo, was one of the speakers at the 17th Africa Security Watch Conference in Banjul, Gambia.
The Nigerian ambassador to Equatorial Guinea, on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria, signed the document to take over MT Heroic Idun. And as we gather here, Nigerian Navy ships are positioned to escort the vessel to Nigeria, although the crew are coming up with excuses of technical faults and ill health of the captain. This will not deter repatriation of the vessel.
2 days later, the Nigerian Navy takes over the very large crude carrier MT Heroic Idun, seized by the authorities in Equatorial Guinea for infractions on its waters. The vessel and crew were brought back to the Nigerian maritime environment, specifically the Bonny anchorage in Rivers State, on Saturday. The crew is arraigned on a 3-count amended charge. 1, that the crew conspired amongst themselves to commit a maritime offense contrary to Section 10 of the Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offences Act 2019 and punishable under Section 12 of the same Act. 2. Falsely pretending to become victims of maritime offense in order to evade lawful interception by Nigerian Navy ship Gongola and committed an offense contrary to Section 4H of the Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offences Act 2019 and punishable under Section 12 of the same Act. 3. An attempt to deal with crude oil within the Nigeria Exclusive Economic Zone without lawful authority, thereby committing an offense contrary to Section 1, subsection 17 of the Miscellaneous Offences Act 2004.
We came to Nigeria on 8th of August. We had a misunderstanding with the terminal. The documents which were supposed to be filed by the ship's agents, so there was some misunderstanding relating to the documents. And in the night we had an incident with a vessel which at that point of time we did not know is the Nigerian Navy. And as I was guided by my higher authorities and my owners and company, we managed to take all actions what as was advised by them. And on 12th of August, we were arrested by Equatorial Guinea Navy ship Captain David and taken to Equatorial Guinea. We arrived in Equatorial Guinea on 14th of August, and since then we've been in Equatorial Guinea, and then we were handed over to Nigeria. So that's our side of the story. We are innocent, and we have always been innocent. Myself and the ship's crew, we've just been following orders which were provided to us. Yes, we believe we are innocent, and we were just following orders. We are innocent.
Justice Turaki Mohammed of the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt, has adjourned the case to Tuesday, the 15th of November. Ofieteme George, Arise News.
Dr. Bati, a lot to talk about this on, because interesting times.
Okay, it's interesting to see that the Nigerian authorities have arraigned the crew of the large vessel MT Udon that took over 300 million liters of crude from Nigeria. Now, the Nigerian authorities had tried to intercept them on August 5. They failed, but they were further intercepted by the authorities of Equatorial Guinea in August, eventually. Then, of course, now we're at the moment where they've been brought back to Nigeria and there is a case in court. First, let us commend the authorities of the Equatorial Guinea, the government of Equatorial Guinea. Because what the government of Equatorial Guinea has done is to act within the purview of the United Nations International Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's called UNCLOS. Now, under UNCLOS, countries are required to assist other countries when their property has been stolen on the sea and is taken off the sea. And what UNCLOS says is that you cannot steal a property from a particular country and take it out of the territorial waters beyond 12 nautical miles. So in this particular case, there is a case. However, it is for the original state to pick up the issue and prosecute. So this is a very important development, that the persons who stole Nigerian property have been brought back. Now, what are the charges? The charges, as Obieteme George pointed out, would seem to include false pretense, piracy, and crude oil theft. But what the International Law of the Sea would seem to say in Article 101, in the International Convention, UNCLOS, in Article 101, is this is robbery, simpliciter. These persons, I hope the charges will be amended for that, should be charged, in addition, for robbery under the International Law of the Sea, because it's stolen crude. And we hope that there will be diligent prosecution. This is not a case where we hear that the case has been thrown out because there was no diligent prosecution. That's one question. The second question, the captain of the ship, of the vessel, was saying that they were acting on orders from above. Now, who are those persons who gave those orders? The court has a responsibility to also investigate that. 3, the court clearly has jurisdiction because it's Nigerian material that was stolen. Under UNCLOS Article 101, we have a legitimate case also under the International Law of the Sea. Number 4, is that, look, what happened to that crude oil? Nobody is talking about the crude oil that was stolen. Where is it at this moment? Because the vessel was brought back empty. The persons, the crew that have now appeared in court, 10 of them were arraigned, right? 16 of them were arraigned. 10 of them are supposed to appear in court today, making the full complement of the 26-member crew on MT Idun. And these, we're told, these are Indians, Pakistanis, Sri Lankans, people from various parts of the world. So on whose orders did they take Nigerian crude, really? Who gave them orders to steal our crude? Finally, I think what is important about all this is that this is a perfect illustration of the menace of crude oil theft, of the loss of revenue by Nigeria. And if you stretch that to the end of the street, the implications affect you, affect me, affect all of us who have been groaning under the weight of the fact that Nigeria is losing enormous revenue. So it's not just a legalistic thing. I think that the investigations should go further. While I commend the Equatorial Guinean authorities for keeping to international law, I think Nigeria continues to drop the ball, whether it is with crude oil theft or it's with anything. We need to identify these persons who are collecting rent on our backs as ordinary citizens in Nigeria, stealing crude oil, colluding with international forces, promoting maritime piracy, because it's also a clear case of piracy, which is a major problem in the Gulf of Guinea, in the Gulf of Aden. And we hope that the diligent prosecution, as we expect, of this particular matter will offer more insights into one of those areas where the rains continue to beat us as a country and as a people.
Okay, so many questions need to be asked, because I just hope this is not just beautiful optics and a circus again, because we know in this country it's so easy to bring up a circus, smoke screen, gaslight, we move on. The news cycle is just about a week or two. People stop talking about it and we move on. At first, I thought they said there was no crude. Then, where is the crude that these people had taken and moved up to Equatorial Guinea? I thought they said it is not possible to use ships that big to meander through our waters. I thought that was the first rebuttal I heard. Or maybe my ears are deceiving me. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Then this ship, this vessel this size, meander through our water, bam, all the way to Equatorial Guinea. Getting to Equatorial Guinea now, it's been brought back. We've seen the size of that vessel. And the next thing, we can't find the crude. I think there's something called the Lloyd's Register. We should be able to track who in the name that MT Heroics is registered. And secondly, these crew members, they said they got a call from above or wherever they got a call from. Who sent them? That person should, be exposed. A ship of this size? Goodness me. But I thought they said there was no way it could have meandered through our creeks. And where are the barrels of crude that were stored in this? We all know that it is open source. You can get all the information needed about the vessel. Why can't we go after that? And for the charges, I think the charges should be reviewed. Because when you look at it, false pretense are not... No, it's a deeper issue than this. So what's really going on here? I'm at sea, no pun intended, concerning this matter of this vessel that was found on the Equatorial Guinea seas. Because what we should be trying to find out is who employed the crew, who got them, who owns the ship, who hired the ship. The initial story we heard, I keep repeating, was the fact that the argument was a ship of this magnitude cannot pass through our waters. But all of a sudden, we've seen that it is true. Then the ship is brought back empty, with no crude. I think more should be done. If possible, we should also get private independent investigators into this matter. There's so much more that meets the eyes concerning matters like this. And that's how Nigeria's Commonwealth keep going away. It's been frittered.